So if you're running a specialist firm, you know the struggle. The internet is just so noisy. It's an absolute battlefield out there. And just trying to shout louder than everyone else, that's a strategy that's guaranteed to fail. So how do you cut through the noise and actually start winning? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down.
I mean, think about it for a second. If you don't even know what your battlefield is, how can you possibly win the war for your customers' attention? You just end up fighting on way too many fronts, you spread your resources thin, and you get absolutely no traction. It's a super common problem, but the fix is all about strategy, not just more effort.
And that solution, that strategy, is what we call a home zone. You can see it right here. It's the critical second step on the roadmap to success. Think of it like your own personal fortress online, a defensible, profitable corner of the internet that's all yours. This is the foundation that lets you stop chasing every single client and start attracting the right ones.
Okay, let's get into it. Here's our game plan. First up, we're going to properly define what this home zone or battlefield really is. Then we'll walk through a niche assessment scan so you can check if your idea is viable. After that, we'll dive into how to gauge actual market demand using keywords. And to wrap it up, I'm going to show you a really clever backdoor strategy to get into even the most competitive markets.
So, first things first. What in the world is a home zone? It might sound kind of simple, but I'm telling you, getting this right is probably the single most important part of your entire online strategy. This is where you draw that line in the sand and you say, right here, this is my turf. This is where I win.
At its heart, your home zone is all about getting crystal clear. I'm talking ruthless clarity on what you sell, who you sell it to, and where you can find them. Now, this could be a geographic area, something like dermatologists in Johannesburg, or it could be a super specific worldwide niche, like, say, collectors of rare champion puppies. The key thing here isn't the size of the territory, it's the intense, laser-like focus.
All right, so how do you know if you found a good home zone? You don't guess. You can't afford to guess. Instead, you run a systematic recon mission. Think of it like a 5-point scan to make sure the territory you're looking at is actually worth capturing.
And to make it really easy to remember, we use a framework called the 5 Ps. That's passion, problem, profit, presence, and pathway. Let's break down what each of these really means for you.
First up is passion. Now let's be super clear. This is not about your weekend hobbies. This is about your deep, authentic expertise. You got to ask yourself, what are you naturally good at? What do people constantly ask for your help with? That thing you do without even thinking? That's where your most sustainable advantage lies.
Next, we've got problem. Because, look, passion is great, but it's totally useless if it doesn't solve a real-world problem for someone. Is there an actual, explicit need out there? Are people actively trying to find a solution? You have to be sure you're not just building something you think is cool. You have to build something people are actually desperate for.
Third, and this one is absolutely critical, is profit. Can the people who have this problem actually afford your solution? You have to do the math and check the financial viability. Is the market big enough? Is there a chance for recurring revenue? Can you clearly show a client their return on investment? Because a great idea that no one can pay for, well, that's a hobby, not a business.
Number 4 is presence. This is all about your ability to actually own the space. How crowded is it already? What is your competition saying? The goal here isn't just to be another player in the game. The goal is to position yourself so that you become the go-to expert, the obvious choice.
And finally, we have pathway. This is where we get tactical. Is there a clear, direct path to actually reach this audience? Do they all hang out on LinkedIn, for example? Understanding their psychographic profile, which is basically not just who they are, but how they think and what they really care about, is the key to getting your message in front of them without wasting a ton of time and money.
Okay, so once you've run your 5P scan and your niche looks promising, it's time to move from that high-level strategy to some real-world data. You need to listen to what the market is telling you. And the best way to do that online is to look at what people are actually typing into search engines. Just look at this slide for a second. The difference here is huge. Someone searching for surfing is just browsing. They're curious. But someone searching for surfing wipeout pictures for sale? Whoa, that person has their wallet out, ready to buy. Your goal isn't to get lost in the sea of millions of broad searches. It's to be the #1 result for the super specific, high-intent phrases that your absolute best customers are using.
This just nails the whole point. The legendary Peter Drucker said it best. It's all about understanding the customer so well that your product or service is the perfect fit. It basically sells itself. All this research, all this digging into keywords, it's not just a technical task. It's how you achieve that perfect product-market fit.
Okay, now for a really powerful, kind of sneaky tactic. What do you do if your perfect home zone is already dominated by huge, established companies? Do you give up? No way. You don't have to fight them head-on. You can use what we call a backdoor strategy.
Let's use a really tough example, something like mergers and acquisitions. By the time a company announces they're looking for M&A services, it's usually way too late for a new player to get in the door. So the real question is, how do you get on their radar before they even know they need you?
Here's the playbook. First, you don't target the big company directly. Instead, you identify everyone around the deal: the banks, the audit firms, the incubators. Second, you build a hyper-targeted custom audience list of these people for your social media ads. Third, you create something called a lead magnet, a really valuable piece of content that solves a problem they have. And finally, you partner up with a non-competing firm in that space to get instant credibility. See what you're doing? You're surrounding the target, not attacking it head-on. And this right here is the core principle in action. It's a total mindset shift. You stop waiting around for the phone to ring. You stop chasing clients. Instead, you create something so valuable and so perfectly targeted that you become a magnet, proactively pulling your ideal clients toward you.
So that's the blueprint, right? It's a clear, logical process. First, you define your battlefield by choosing a focused home zone. Then, you test that idea by running it through the 5P scan. And if the front door to that market seems locked, you get creative and you find a clever backdoor.
And that brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. Every single market has these side channels, gatekeepers, influencers, other players. Your challenge is to start thinking beyond just the obvious customer. So I'll ask you, what is the most profitable and maybe the most overlooked backdoor into your market?